perspective presented by the New Orleans Secular Humanist Association, following our few principles of humanism.
We're committed to the use of science and reason for understanding the universe and for solving human problems. We're skeptical of untested claims of knowledge, but we're open to new ideas.
We are concerned with securing justice and fairness in society and in ending intolerance and discrimination. We are committed to the total separation of religion and government.
We affirm humanism as a realistic alternative to the theologies of despair and the ideologies of violence. We reject the concept of an afterlife and believe in living a full and rewarding life here and now.
We value and respect each individual's right to judge and lead their lives according to their own position, as long as it's respectful of other people, living in a free society.
We hope you enjoy today's program and others in the weeks to follow. Hello again, folks. Thanks for watching our show. We hope you will enjoy it today, as well as the shows we have done for you previously. My guest today is Patricia Gay, who is the Executive Director of the Preservation Resource Center here in New Orleans. Well, I was talking to Patty before we went on the air because we have known each other or about each other for decades. Is that right? Decades.
It's gotten to be decades.
But we haven't had contact during that time, and it was so long ago we can't remember whether we had some controversy or whether we were supporting each other. But anyway, Patty, welcome to my show.
I'm delighted to be here with you again.
And let me just say this, the guests that I have, I do 2 shows a month. Generally, I like to, because we are a secular humanist group. Secular meaning that we're non-religious, but humanist means that since we are not planning for an afterlife, that this is the only life we're going to have. That's our position, and we should live it fully, rewardingly, and get what we can get out of it that's pleasurable, so long as we don't keep other people from doing the same thing. And what you're doing, the preservation of this city, provides us things that give us pleasure, and which is why I felt I was very appropriate to ask you to come in and talk about the Preservation Resource Center.
Well, Harry, thank you so much. And it's interesting, whenever a building is restored, people just smile from ear to ear when they see it. It makes people so happy.
You mean New Orleans people?
New Orleanians,
okay.
Yes.
Well, let me just tell our folks a little bit about your organization.
Okay.
Which comes from, your mission. It says PRC, which is Preservation Resource Center, has been preserving, restoring, and revitalizing New Orleans historic architecture and neighborhoods since 1974. That's a long time.
We go back.
Throughout its history, PRC has acted as an advocacy agent on a local, regional, and national scale, spreading the word about the city, its rich architectural heritage, and the economic importance of preserving this heritage. Preservation Resource Center also takes a hands-on approach to preservation with a history of successfully restoring over 1,400 properties. Now, when you talk about the importance of the preservation,
mm-hmm.
and of course my concern in the past has been the French Quarter,
mm-hmm.
because I lived there, I worked there, and it is our shining example of what preservation can be. And at one time I talked to who was then the general manager of the Hilton Hotel, who said to me, if we did not have a French Quarter here, you wouldn't have a hotel. You wouldn't have a Hilton Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Our maybe number one or at least number 2 industry or source of revenue in this city is tourism. The tourists are here because we have a French Quarter. I think any city in this country would pay us $1 billion to move the French Quarter to their city. All right. Having said that, Patty, tell us something about what you're doing, what you'd like to talk about, what's underway now.
Okay. Well, I would like to say a few words about the French Quarter because, after all, where are we without it? And thank goodness we established in 1936. Of course, I wasn't around then, but the royal we, the commission to protect the French Quarter, and we were almost the first to do that. Charleston beat us by a little bit, but that was unusual. And we were, by the way, 7 times bigger than Charleston.
Yes.
So I think that's an important thing.
Let me just ask you this. So that first law that set up the French Quarter Historic Preservation District, that was the first one. How many do we have now, historic preservation districts?
Oh, well, we created the HDLC in 75 and the CBD HDLC a few years after that. And we're working on getting some more local historic districts. I know that we have at least about 16,000 buildings in local historic districts. I think we have about 14 historic districts. I'm not sure.
Okay.
That's a good question because let's say I like tourism also. I love the visitors who come here to enjoy what we love about our city. And let's say, well, let's build on that for our economy. Well, we have to do it right. And we can't double the number of tourists in the French Quarter.
No.
What we have to do is tell the visitors about other things they can do in this city and even in the region and around the state. So that I have the best job because I get to talk about all those good things.
Okay, I interrupted you when you were telling us about the French Quarter, so carry on.
Well, I want every neighborhood in this city to believe just the way you do, that the French Quarter is essential for all of our happiness and vital neighborhoods. Sometimes we say, oh, well, the French Quarter is too crowded, there's too much going on down there, I'm not going to go to the French Quarter. Well, that we shouldn't look at it that way, and we can't write it off. And it is for our local people as well as visitors. And certainly there are a lot of people who live in the French Quarter, and we have to make sure that continues.
Absolutely, yes. Most people don't realize that I suspect more properties in the French Quarter are residential than are commercial. Is that right?
You know, I need to research that. I think you might be very correct about that. And it's important to keep the residential, and that's true in all of our neighborhoods. I mean, we were talking about zoning a little earlier. It's really, if you buy a house in a residential neighborhood with certain understanding of what kind of buildings can be there, and maybe it's only residential, no commercial, the zoning shouldn't be changed without public input.
Let me say something that probably will shock a lot of people, but the property owners in the French Quarter are the ones who have preserved and maintained our major tourist attraction. And because they have, and because it's so beautifully done, their property assessment values go up and up and up and up, which means their property taxes go up and up and up. Now, the property owners in the French Quarter are paying this city for the right to be its major tourist attraction. My position would be the city should waive property taxes on the people who have restored and maintained their French Quarter properties because they are maintaining our major industry in the city. What do you think of that?
Well, I think we need to put you on our advocacy committee, and we need to work on some things like that because it's the same thing is true in other neighborhoods. When people have lived in a neighborhood for a long time, they've maintained their property, but while they see the rest of the neighborhood going down, and then all of a sudden it starts going up again,
and their taxes go up.
And I do think we should think about the kinds of incentives, the kind of assistance we can give in cases like that.
Well, I'm glad I threw that out on the table.
That was excellent. Right. We're airing that for the first time.
All right. Well, Patty, carry on.
Okay. Well, as I said, I think I have maybe the best job in the city because to meet with people from neighborhoods all over the city who care, who want to get involved, to work for their neighborhood. Is such a wonderful thing. And also to be involved with a program like we have, Rebuilding Together, which is a national program where we have teams after the storm. Volunteer teams came from all over the country
to
work on the houses of low-income homeowners. And we had been doing that since 1988 when the storm hit in 2005. So we were ready. We knew how to organize those teams and put them to work. And now we're back to using our local teams. After the storm, everybody was fixing their own house and business and so forth. So now we're back to Christmas. Well, it used to be Christmas in October. Now it's Rebuilding Together, or our October build. We do it in October. But we still get teams from out of town throughout the year.
I read about that in the paper from time to time.
It is so wonderful to help homeowners who have worked so hard all their lives to pay off a mortgage and to fix up their house, and also to, if they're handicapped, we have a really good program where we put in grab bars and wheelchair ramps and widened doorways for people who are in wheelchairs. So we have that going on as well. Our neighborhoods have always been mixed as far as where people came from, the economy, their income levels, with a little residential mixed in with our commercial, a little commercial with our residential. So that's what we try to preserve.
I have recently, when I say recently, the last couple of years, been very much impressed with what's happening along Rampart, St. Claude, Tremé, and on both sides of French Quarter, and there's a lot of good work going on there.
There really, really is. We own a property, our headquarters for Rebuilding Together, and we have a salvage store down there, right near the railroad track.
Okay.
And we've been down there for a long time, and we started out right before the storm in Holy Cross, which is below the Industrial Canal. So we've been doing a lot downtown for years. And to watch it come back, and NOCA is right down there and doing great. The streetcar is going in now, so it's almost impossible to drive down St. Claude.
Very, very difficult.
But Harry, maybe something we could work on together, because years ago, when we were talking about the streetcar, before the storm even, I said, look, it should go all the way to the Chalmette battlefield. How much would tourists like that? Tourists love battlefields. It's not easy for a visitor to get to the Chalmette battlefield.
Well, and it used to go there.
Well,
or did
it may have.
Well, when I was drafted into the Army, and I was going down to Panama from New Orleans, so we were here at Jackson Barracks, and we took a streetcar from Jackson Barracks into the city to see New Orleans. So it ran all the way down there.
Well, yes. So we did have streetcars all over this city. What a shame.
They took them out, and now they're putting them back.
Thank goodness.
Well, that's part of historic.
Let's do work on the railroad company says, no, we don't want it to go across our railroad track. What difference does that make if you're stopping traffic for cars or a streetcar? What difference? And then it could go across the canal. And let's think big.
Let me throw another thought in here, which is another big thought. Terrible problem about parking in the French Quarter, and they just made it more terrible by raising the rates. But I have for the longest time felt that the real solution is off-street parking with a shuttle bus. Now, the city owns all that parking area around the old auditorium, the Civic Auditorium. Plenty of parking there. Park there with a shuttle bus going in and out of the French Quarter. It would relieve everybody. And, of course, that parking lot would be highly protected, would relieve people of that problem, of the parking problem. You can go into a downtown parking garage, but if you're there very long, it costs you a lot of money. So I think that's a very viable concept.
Well, that sounds fabulous to me. And, there there's a planning principle at work right now to try to reduce the number of automobiles on the street. And I think, you can't move too fast with that, because I don't think too many people are going to give up their automobile yet. But we have done things to put in more bicycle lanes, and there's more that we can do in that direction. And so transit, make it, let's get that transit back the way we used to have it. It'll never be exactly the same, but let's keep working on public transit. And I think you have a very novel idea. I think it's great.
Well, I don't even know that it's novel. I'm sure that off-site parking with shuttle buses are not. In fact, we do it regularly for the fairs and the events. They set up a parking area and they shuttle buses. But this would be permanent, because the French Quarter attraction is 365 days a year.
It sure is. It is such a treasure, and I want even the whole state to realize how important the French Quarter is to the economy of the state, not just the city.
I would hope so. I don't have a whole lot of hope for the state government of Louisiana, but
now we have to be optimistic now, because we have a new governor and a new lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
And guess what? We say, and we are absolutely correct about this, historic preservation is bipartisan. So
it certainly should be.
It
yes.
is bipartisan, and so we want those Republicans and those Democrats to look at the programs that have done so much for Louisiana, not just New Orleans, but all over the state. Harry, are you familiar with the Main Street program? You may not be.
No, I'm not.
Well, it was started by the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and it has helped towns all over the country. And we have 35 Main Street towns in Louisiana. And what it does is, the little main streets of every small town have declined. Well, this is a way for them to come back. It's providing some professional help, a little bit of grant money. The thing is, in preservation, a little bit goes a long way. And so we have wonderful small towns all over this
I see.
state.
So what you're talking about is preserving what's there, not replacing it with something new.
Right, just taking those buildings and helping businesses go in and thrive and get tourists to visit all those places. And we have urban main streets too. I mean, we have seen neighborhoods in New Orleans, commercial streets, come back. Ferret, O.C. Haley, North Broad, in Algiers. We have really seen some main streets come back. So unfortunately, our politicians up there cut that program, even though it was generating taxes and tax revenues and businesses and jobs and all of that. And we want to get it at least back to its peak.
Well, that's why I told you I don't have a lot of hope for the government of the state of Louisiana.
I'm optimistic now.
Let me mention that Patty brought me in some copies of their publication, which is called Preservation in Print, which comes out monthly, right?
Yes, almost monthly. We miss a
And
few months.
if someone wanted to get copies of this, how would they? And in addition, how do they contact your organization?
Well, we have a wonderful website. It's the Preservation Resource Center of New Orleans. But also, you just call us on the phone, 581-7032, and we'll put your name on the list.
I want you to repeat your website and your phone number.
Okay. It's the prcno.org, and our number is 504-581-7032.
And if they call you and they say, I'd like to read one of your publications,
Well,
do they subscribe to that? Or
yes.
do you have a membership?
We certainly do. And we mail this to our members, but we will mail some complimentary copies out so people can see what it is that we do. Because the more members we have, and we have members from all over the country, actually.
What does it take to become a member?
$45
per year.
Yes, $45 a year, and
then you operate like with a board of directors.
we have a board of directors, and we have wonderful events, Harry. We have, except in the winter months, we have monthly renovators happy hours in a house or a building that's being restored. anywhere in this city once a month.
And you're serving alcoholic beverages?
Well, we do have wine, but the people who own the house and the people who are working on the house talk about the renovation that's going on. Sometimes I have to use a map to get there, but we had one at the Orpheum where the von Kernatowskis talked about restoring the Orpheum.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we have had some fabulous renovators' happy hours.
Well, you're talking about restoration. When you look at the Sanger Theater and the Orpheum, which was not inexpensive, they are really fabulously beautiful.
Aren't they? Oh, they're such.
They are beautiful.
And what about the Roosevelt? The restoration of that. And all of this has been made possible to a great degree by the rehab tax credit that we have worked to keep in Washington and in Baton Rouge.
Yes.
Every year we work hard because people are able to take a building that has really gotten run down, and they don't have to cut every corner. Because of the rehab tax credit, they can restore what needs to be restored. And so that when you look around and you see beautiful buildings, think that people have been working hard for legislation to make that happen.
Well, restoration is not inexpensive.
That's true.
And so you need all the help you can get.
That is true. And we were able to get a homeowner rehab tax credit passed a few years ago, but it doesn't work as well as we would like. So the more members we get and the more people we have who are part of our constituency to come up with legislation that will help people buy these blighted properties and restore them. But there is help out there. We have Renovate Right workshops at the PRC. And people come and they really do learn some helpful hints in renovating a house.
Whether they're doing it themselves or hiring someone to do it.
Exactly. And how to work with a contractor. We also have a program for realtors, the Historic House Specialist Program, where they come and they hear about historic houses, the architecture, and even what it takes to restore houses. So we're working on a lot of fronts.
Well, I'm impressed with all of that, and of course the results of what you do are apparent. Now, you mentioned Charleston, South Carolina as having the first preservation
They beat us
historic
by just
district.
a couple of years, right?
But does that become a tourist attraction for them in Charleston?
Oh, is it ever? Yes. And then, you do end up with a problem if you don't handle tourism right. You could, if we didn't work on it in the French Quarter, it could become one giant Disney World or something. And so they have these cruise ships that come in, and that it's good to have a lot of tourists, but you don't want just to overwhelm a place all at once. So they have been working with that too. But it's certainly a big tourism attraction too.
Well, if you go to Europe, you can see old architecture and history everywhere. But in this country, we've got it here.
We have it here, and people do say, like, when you start putting up these high-rise buildings and these big boxes, it could be any place USA. But in New Orleans, you know it when you look at those shotgun houses and you look at those townhouses in the French Quarter. So I hope that even if people live in a new neighborhood, it doesn't matter. The heart of the city is important wherever you live.
Yes.
We hope that a lot of your listeners and watchers will join the PRC, because we need as many members as we can get as we go after legislation and as we work to save vacant and blighted houses.
Of which we have quite a number.
There is a lot left to do, and we know how to do it. So,
but after the hurricane and the flood, a lot of people did not come back, and they just abandoned their homes. And something has to be done with all of those properties.
That is true, and we market properties. We approach it from every angle, and we work with neighborhood associations. So if there's a neighborhood that has vacant and blighted properties, and We would even work in New Orleans East, or we had our great neighborhood celebration out in Gentilly, closer to the lake. Every neighborhood counts in our book. And if your neighborhood has a problem with some vacant and blighted properties, just give us a call and we'll work with you to address that problem, because people want to live in New Orleans. They really do.
Well, and a lot of people who came down here just to help after the flood stayed.
That is true.
We have a unique city. Mm-hmm. It is not a rich city. In fact, our city government is strapped for money.
It is,
really
but you know, I was at City Council listening to the mayor present his budget, and sales tax revenues are up and property tax revenues, as we were talking. Yeah. And I thought, well, you're welcome. Yeah. Because what we do, we save things that visitors like and that attract new residents as well.
Well, regarding sales taxes, all these years, people drive from New Orleans out to Jefferson Parish to the shopping malls, and they get all of the sales tax money that Orleans Parish don't get. We just never had a big shopping mall here, and we've lost all that sales tax money. I will say this, I think our current mayor really loves the city, and I think he will do whatever he can to make things better, but it's not an easy job.
Well, no, it isn't an easy job. Politics is not easy. But we do have Riverwalk that's been developed and has some outlets.
Is that working out?
It seems to be. And, you know, we just have to keep at it. And I love all the new development that has occurred around the Rouses in the business district.
Yes.
We're getting a lot of good new construction. And and people are moving into these units, and that's what, the more people we have, the better our economy.
Is it your impression that they're coming from outside of New Orleans, or are they just relocating within the city?
I think a lot of people are moving here from outside.
Well, that would be good.
I really do.
That would be good.
I just think we have so much to offer for livability. And because the federal rehab tax credit, well, actually, let me say this. In 2016, we will be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the National Preservation Act, which was started in 1966. And you and I can think back to the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, when people were moving out and leaving vacant buildings in the city. And the federal government realized that their urban renewal, their highway construction across historic neighborhoods, things like that were doing great damage. And so the National Preservation Act was passed. And we set up the National Register, rehab tax credits, all kinds of things.
Patty, our time is up. It goes very fast.
Okay.
It's good seeing you again, and let's not let this much time pass before we do it again.
That is true. And congratulations on your show, and I urge everybody to join the Preservation Resource Center.
Okay, and thank you folks for watching our show.